Well, a very good morning to you as we come to you live from our Auckland Spark studios here in Johannesburg. This, of course, is a very special broadcast that we're bringing to you both on SABC News and SABC2. It is the live funeral of Pope Francis, which, of course, has been a very busy week and a build-up to where this is the final moments of his papacy that we are going to be seeing unfolding live in front of us today.
No doubt it's historic, it's solemn. But there's a complexity, I think, to the atmosphere that we've been experiencing, not only this week, but especially this morning, that of grief, but also of gratitude. Gratitude in the life that he lived, and also prayer for the soul of who many regarded as an apostle of mercy, as well as a friend of the poor.
Yeah, and it certainly was, and it resonated throughout his time there at the head of the Catholic Church for those many years, and infecting so many people with what I do think what you have really captured well is his humility, his courage and compassion. And I think that's what he really stood for, and we saw that as he stayed there for many years and through so many different events that unfolded in a world that right now is not a world that I think he liked very much, because he was very vocal about the things that have been unfolding and the cruelty that we see in every aspect of life. So this is a moment where the world can actually stop, and my goodness has the world stopped, because if you can see on your screen right now, Blaine, the live images that are coming from St. Peter's Square, where there's expected to be a good 300,000. Well, I mean, I'm going by the numbers that we saw the late Pope John Paul. He gathered so many, and they're expecting anywhere between 250,000 to 300,000 mourners to gather there today to watch this funeral take place. And it'll happen at 10 o'clock South African time.
A raft of heads of state, monarchy as well. And you mentioned the issues that Francis dealt with during his papacy. And some of those heads of states that will be present today, he might not have agreed fully with policy and the way they handle themselves. But as we saw recently, the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance, paying a visit to the Pope. He put aside his policies, he put aside his politics, and met with J.D. Vance. What does that tell us? An openness, I guess, of compassion and caring for the thoughts of others, and a welcoming, I guess, of ideas. And it's seen here as a reflection at Vatican City.
Yeah, it certainly does. And I mean, you know, the enormity of the moment is really being captured here today, and it has been captured, I think, throughout the week. And I don't think any of us can actually look at the reality of when the Pope passed away on Easter Monday. And I would call it, if I may, a poetic symmetry not lost on many people. I mean, departing this world on the day that Christians celebrate the triumph of life over death, which I think we cannot ever forget. You know, having a look and seeing the significance of a passing over a time like over an Easter. I mean, in the days that followed, there were millions of people from across the globe, whether we talk about pilgrims, priests, presidents, that filed through St. Peter's Basilica, that sent messages, that expressed their love for what the Pope had done, what he had said, for the way he held himself, in many instances in a very controversial way. And we can delve a little bit deeper into that. But the reality is he stood true in his beliefs and his thoughts, which was really shaped by a life that he spoke to so often as well.
What you say is so important. The timing of his death on a day when Christians celebrate the risen Lord, it just adds, I guess, to the magnitude of the moment. And that means so much to so many people in so different ways. And to reflect that, we have an armada of SABC News reporters around the country, also abroad as well. Let's show who we have. Griselda Lewis is there. We have Corbin August as well in Cape Town. We're going to get a sense of what people are talking about on the ground, and a sense of what Francis meant to them. So many, Leanne, will feel not only a personal sense of loss, but a collective sense of loss. What does that mean in this day and age? We will find out.
Yeah, we will. And it's good that we're getting very much so local perspective on a global story, and it's lovely to tell the South African version of this as well as the African version, because we'll talk more about that in a while, but Africa may be at center stage here. We do know that the conclave begins, and we've got quite a good contender in one of our African representatives there, but we will continue, and of course let's just update you, because it has been a week filled with a lot of ceremonial traditions, and these traditions will continue today. So we've seen the Pope laying in state. We first saw the ceiling of his apartment, which is not the normal apartment that the Pope stays in, but one that he chose to, in his very much so, much more toned down into opulence. But that was what happened. And then last night, a very symbolic moment, his coffin was sealed and placed beneath Michelangelo's dome. And that's something that's very important as well. This happened yesterday, where now a solemn stillness actually settles in, and we wait for the customary funeral rites that will be taking place. So that's really bringing you up to speed with where we are right now. And then, of course, in about 50 minutes from now, the funeral will begin.
Yeah, and we have some important minds in studio.
We do, and I'm looking so forward to quizzing these incredible minds, because we can talk about what we've seen, but these are people that have studied their whole lives what this is all about. So it's a great pleasure to bring here into studio with us Parish Priest at Archdiocese of Johannesburg, Father Simon Donnelly, and Dr Annemarie Paulin-Campbell is a South African Catholic laywoman, also a Jesuit, which of course is what Pope Francis was, and she's joining us here to talk about the life of Pope Francis and the significance of this moment. And then, of course, our international editor, Sophie McQuena, who's been with us since this morning, weighing in on the significance and the international significance of such a man and such a moment. It really is. So I suppose, if I may, throw to Father, let me begin with you. I mean, it's a very solemn occasion. How are you personally feeling on a day like this as we bid farewell to the Pope?
I think you've both summed it up well. It's mixed feelings, you know, sadness at Pope Francis's death, but also gratitude, quite right, and a kind of quiet joy. He was a realist and very pragmatic, and I think the prospect of death wouldn't have terrified him. He knew that life was drawing to a close, you know, when he wrote his last testament, his will, which was published on the Vatican website. He says, it's the twilight of my life. I mean, he was quite aware, he was 88. But for those of us who worked there for him, there are 3,000 people working in the Vatican, but others of us who were interpreters and translators, it's very personal, because we met him and interacted with him many times, and we saw him in quiet moments, not only public moments. And so we've experienced, many people have experienced his kindness, his goodness, his personal interest in us, his quiet, fatherly nature, and that counts for a lot. So we have many beautiful memories.
Dr. Annemarie, love, mercy, and it talks to various elements of his papacy, how he lived his life from before Pope, Archbishop, in Buenos Aires, to coming to Rome. What does love, mercy mean in the context of his passing, but also his life?
I think that whole thing of mercy is absolutely key. You know, when he was interviewed right at the beginning of his papacy, he was asked that question, who is Bergoglio? And his response to that was, I am one who is a sinner who God has looked upon with mercy. And I think he really had a deep sense from his own life experience of the mercy of God. He had that pivotal moment when he was 17 in 1953, where he just had the sense of being drawn into a moment where he felt that somehow God was waiting for him, and he went to confession. And that moment was the moment where his vocation crystallized, and he had a sense of needing to show that mercy to others, wanting others to experience that kind of merciful, loving God. And so I think he lived that, he epitomized that. He wanted his priests to be people of mercy, to show that. He was very strong about that when people would come with their burdens, with their struggles, their sin, and come to receive forgiveness. Mercy was huge for him. It was a call. And in fact, he chose as his motto, right back when he was made bishop, and he continued that, this idea of being the one called because they have been shown mercy. So mercy, I think, is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, it's beautiful stories, and I know you and I were talking off air, and it was a matter of reading his autobiography and really getting to the heart and soul of him, and to actually speak to that calling when he felt the calling to go into the priesthood. And that was a very beautiful moment in his life, because it was something that he felt as a young boy, but then sort of put it on the back burner. And then, as you say, at 17 he was going to watch, for those that don't know it, and I'll relay it because it's so fresh in my mind, and you just reminded me, he was going to watch something with friends of his, and he was meeting them, but then he had this draw into the basilica where he lived in the area, and he went in there and he felt like doing confession, and he went in there, and as he confessed, it was that moment that he felt that God was sitting with him, and he knew that he needed to join the priesthood and become and follow this calling. But he didn't want to tell his mother. He told his father, who was fine, his gran, who was a great influence in his life. But his mother, he lied to and told him that he was studying medicine. And then, of course, she found out, and that was the start of it. So it's a big moment in a story, I think, as you unfold over 88 years to see this man that we are burying today, and the significance that it leaves behind, and what an amazing man. But Mum Sophie, and this is where I bring you into it, because I wonder, and I think we got a glimpse into his mind as to the state of the world and what he was leaving behind, because as much as he spoke, as much as he kissed the feet of people, begging them for peace, begging people to accept others for who and what they believe and who they are, he's leaving the world in a very bad place. I mean, let's get a glimpse into his mind when it came to the state of world affairs.
I want to start with the continent, the African continent. When he visited Africa in 2013, he went to South Sudan, Central African Republic, Kenya, and Uganda. Now, this area, IGAD, central to the issues of conflict at that time, when the Kenyans were divided, but there was a process of rebuilding. He arrives in Nairobi. He does meet President Uhuru Kenyatta at that time. President Kenyatta tells us that at some point in time, when he wanted to get into a room with the Pope and somebody, he doesn't want to mention who that person was, the Pope requested a private meeting with this person. Remember, I'm talking about Kenya going through turmoil. We know at that time, the deputy president, that is William Ruto, who is now the president, was facing ICC cases. From there, he went to Central African Republic. You'd recall, even our soldiers, we lost our soldiers there at CAR. It was tense, the security, but he felt that it's important for him to be there, because if he can't go there, what about the people who are living there? He went to South Sudan. We saw him going down, kissing the feet of the leadership, divided leadership, a symbol that you are up there, but you can come down here. You have to be human, with not so many words. Now, we have a situation in the DRC. We have a situation in Sudan, South Sudan again. And therefore, it's a moment to reflect on the continent, because his last message was a call for peace. In Palestine, in the Middle East, every day speaking to the leadership, they're calling for peace. Ukraine, the same. And at the moment, we are hoping that we'll see that unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine and also in the Middle East, including DRC. That will be a great tribute to him, particularly for those leaders who will be at the Vatican. Let's hope they are not there for selfies and pictures.
It's an important moment that many didn't see last night when the coffin was sealed. Control, if we have those visuals, let's cue it up and give the viewers a sense of what took place last night. His face was covered with a white cloth. It was then blessed with holy water, and a bag of coins, we're told, minted during his papacy, was placed there as well. And also something important, the rojito, the rogito that was placed in the coffin as well. Basically, an indication or highlights of his papacy. What did he do? You see it on your screen now, if I'm not mistaken, in gold, placed there. The signs and signals and his highlights of the pontificate, beautifully planned. Then the coffin sealed, his face now hidden fully from the world, only now a memory. And these memories now will resonate with people across the world, and in particular